Alrighty, you guys, today we are sitting down to talk about our pantry challenge that we're going to do heading into January of this year. If you're new, my name's Cassandra. We work really hard all year long to start as many seeds as possible, grow as much food as possible here on what I'm going to call the modern homestead, and just kind of what comes out of the vegetable garden, plus fishing and hunting, sourcing things locally. Our freezers are pretty full all of the time, and that's a good thing. That shows that all the hard work we're doing is paying off, all the preserving we're doing is paying off, and our family is eating really well. Well, about once a year, I like to take at least 30 days and do a little bit of a pantry challenge just to use up those older cuts of meat, things that fall to the bottom of the freezer, use up any old canning recipe things that we tried, did not really like, or we're just not going through fast enough, things that get overlooked, just whatever it may be. This year in particular, I think is really important for me because if you guys are not new, you know that our basement has been under construction kind of on and off over the last handful of years because we've been doing a lot of the work ourselves. We worked on adding a bedroom, a lunchroom / closet, and a bathroom. Plus, we've been working on kind of starting a space for our downstairs grocery store that we've been working on to hold all of this food that we work really hard to grow and do all those things with. And this last year, we really did that big final push of finishing things off. Things aren't quite done yet, but they are right on the cusp of having everything done. And that being said, a lot of our food storage is on carts with wheels. So we've been wheeling things around. Preservation equipment has been moved around, just making room for different construction equipment that needs to be down there, bringing down different materials. So things are kind of flooded all over the basement right now as we are just pushing to finish this last little bit here. Then it'll be time to clean up all the construction, kind of relocate any extra materials that we have because we will use those for other projects, and put our food storage room back together and put everything back into one space. That being said, this year is really important because I want to make sure that through things getting moved around a ton, husband moving things, my brother-in-law has been helping us a lot because he has a construction company and he's a plumber, so he's been doing a lot of the plumbing work down there, and he's a general contractor, so done a lot of the electrical and working on all of the things that he has been helping us with that are out of my husband and my wheelhouse. Things have just been moved around a lot between different workers, different people, and I want to make sure that nothing super important has been getting lost or kind of jumbled around. A couple of weeks ago during Vlogmas, I brought you guys through my 3 chest freezers and mentioned that I really wanted to get my freezers kind of reorganized and deep cleaned before the start of 2025's garden season because our 5th baby is due in June, and it's just something I would like to not have to worry about making room for everything and moving things around like I would normally during preservation season, just kind of putting things in where they fit. I really want everything to be in one space, all of my things with things, and I'm just ready for that. I said that I wanted to wait until May to do it, and a lot of you guys said, oh no, darling, please don't do that to yourself. You're gonna be so over it by that point. Plus, if I do it in the winter months, I can take things out, put them outside, and I can take my time. I'm not fighting the thawing meat. You guys are right. So what I've decided to do is just eat through the freezers through January, and after that I will go in and reorganize things, and that way I can also take my time. I can do it one freezer at a time. I don't have to feel super overwhelmed to do all 3 at once. So that's what I'm going to do. Thank you guys for your suggestions because it makes a lot more sense that way. So the whole point of this freezer challenge for me, or pantry freezer challenge, is to hopefully clean out my freezers, hopefully get rid of some excess canned goods. That way when we are moving things back around, putting things back into place, I don't have as much to kind of put away as we're putting the canning pantry back together down. Rules for me personally, I'm just doing January. And I'm not gonna go as strictly as I have in years past. I'm not gonna worry about making all of my snacks from scratch, all of my bread products from scratch, everything homemade, and buying as little as possible. That's not the goal for me this year. In previous years, that's 100% been my goal. I wanted to know how much food we really needed to have on hand for our family to get us through a COVID situation or a job loss situation. My husband does get laid off. I don't want to say every year, but my husband's a tradesman, and the one thing my husband really loves about his job is the fact that he bounces around from location to location. I talk about that pretty often here, but the one thing that comes along with that is the fact that if there's no work for your trade specifically, you can get laid off. And it's not like you're fired, it just means that there's no work. So go home and we'll call you when we have a job for you. My husband actually also really likes that about his job. I'm not gonna lie, my husband likes that somewhere, it's usually January, February, or March, if he's gonna get laid off, it'll be one of those 3 months, and it can be, you know, a couple of days, it could be a couple of weeks, it could be literally all of January and February. You just don't know. It depends on work that year, right? But having all of this food means that it's not really that big of a deal if my husband gets laid off, because we've got a huge stockpile downstairs. We don't have to worry about buying a ton of extra things. All of our household goods are downstairs, so he can just enjoy his time off. He can spend it spending extra time with myself and the kids. He can spend a little bit of time ice fishing and putting more things back into the freezer if he wants. Those have been my goals in years past. This year, it's just not about that for me. I want to get rid of old stuff out of the freezers, make room for new organization. And I also know I have some preservation projects stuck away in my freezer that I intended on doing in the fall, but I was in my first trimester and it was a big no for me. It was food, and being in the kitchen was a big no for me. So I stuck a lot of things in the freezer and told myself that I would come back to them when I felt better. I'm really feeling better. I'm about halfway through my pregnancy now, give or take a little bit, feeling a whole lot better. So now is the time. I have 2 turkeys in my freezer I would like to cook and pressure can. I also have some bone broth I'd like to make out of those turkeys. A couple different preservation projects I want to work on over the next couple of weeks here. So just getting more comfortable with my pressure canner is a big goal for me. Canning some meats, something I've never done before. Canning some ready-made meals, also something I've never done before. And just expanding kind of my knowledge a little bit when it comes to this pantry challenge. I have a small list of things here that I know I want to use up. I've been saving all of my homemade bread ends, and if you make homemade bread, you know that usually after the first like 2 or 3 days, it's just not as soft and delicious. I want to make a bunch of breadcrumbs, so I have like a whole drawer in my freezer full of bread that I want to grind up. We're gonna use those in a couple of meals. I would like to get some things out of my freezer to make some convenience items that I've been missing, such as like meatballs, pressed burger patties, maybe some meatloafs. You guys know I love my no-cook freezer prep days, where typically I always make those 3 things, right? Meatballs are super great because if they're already rolled, it's the biggest convenience item because you can make meatball subs. I can make Swedish meatballs out of them. I can make spaghetti meatballs out of them. I can make barbecue meatballs out of them. So many different options, right? Pressed burger patties are always an option if it's like 4:30 and I'm realizing I didn't pull anything out for dinner. You can pull them out frozen. They cook up beautifully in a cast iron skillet. You can do Salisbury steaks with them, pizza burgers, regular burgers. They're so good. And of course, meatloaf, right? Pretty standard, right? Everyone knows how great meatloaf is. So those are kind of my things moving into pantry challenge I would really like to do. I know I have some veggies from 2023, like some shredded zucchini, a handful of like random things in the freezer I'd like to go through. So we have some baking. I have some new recipes I've really wanted to try. I'm gonna try to make some pretzels with the kids probably tomorrow. I have visions of taking some of the pepperonis out of the freezer and making like pepperoni mozzarella pretzels for the kids and we can dunk them in some sauce for some lunch or something. I think that'll be so fun. A handful of things I want to work on through Pantry Challenge, but nothing super crazy. So when it comes to my grocery haul for January, it's probably going to look like a pretty typical grocery haul. I don't really buy a whole lot of meat, right? But it's really just actually taking the time to focus on my freezers a little bit more in depth than I have over the last couple of months, just because the first trimester is not always the easiest. Even though this was probably my best first trimester I've ever had, that still doesn't mean it was glamorous by any means. So I'm ready to just pay a little bit more attention, go through things, and get things reorganized. I'd love to go through my kitchen and give it a little bit of a reset, a little bit of love after the holiday season. Spend a lot of time in there, a lot of baking and things. I'd like to just go through, get rid of things, donate some items, and I'd like to replace some things. So that's kind of where I'm sitting for Pantry Challenge. It's not always necessarily this like huge undertaking, right? It's sometimes very small, and in years past I've done a lot more of a challenge. I can link down below my previous pantry challenges or freezer challenges if you're looking to see a little bit more of like an in-depth thing or how things have gone in years past for my family. However, that's just the reality of where I'm sitting this year. Next year it could be a totally different story, but every year I've done Pantry Challenge, I've been very happy that I've done it. I haven't always reached all of the rules or the goals I've set for myself, but I've always come out with a lot of knowledge when it comes to food storage, how much I need to store, what's actually important to us, what's actually not that important to us, and what we're really using. It's a really great reset heading into another garden season where I'm really thinking, do I really need to account for 50 broccoli plants this year? Well, if I'm looking at my freezer this year and I'm realizing I have a ton of broccoli, maybe not. If I'm realizing that, you know, I planted 6 row feet of green beans and it's only January and we're out of green beans, I need more space for green beans next year. So it's just really great heading into garden season, knowing how many seeds you need to buy, how many starters you need to start, or if you're buying your starts, how to plan out your garden. It's just a great information gatherer, honestly, to really spend those 30 days focusing on your pantry and making that a little bit more of a priority. So that's what this year is for me, just using it as a basis to clean things out for garden season, right? Because this is probably going to be, this is the only garden season I've ever had where I'm going into it with a newborn and being so freshly postpartum. All of my other kids are winter babies, so I've had, you know, 6 months of recovery and all of those things to prep before garden season after having a baby. I don't know if it's going to, I'm sure, I'm mumbling a little bit, but I'm sure in some ways it's going to be a lot easier with a newborn, and in some ways it's going to be a lot harder with a newborn. So that's just the give and take of things, right? I want to go into this garden season knowing what's really important, what are my priorities, because I don't want to overextend myself, set goals for myself and have standards for myself that are just unrealistic, right? I want to be real with myself and go, Cassandra, maybe this isn't the year to do all of the things. Maybe this is the year for priorities, to learn how to make things easier for yourself, how to lighten the load. I already planned this year on using landscape tarps, which I've never done before, weed barriers and things like that in the garden, and just saving myself a whole lot of time and energy fighting the weeds. And I'm really excited about that. I have, you know what, we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait because I want to do another video just on the garden and the orchard and planning and all the seeds I'm buying, or seed hauls, seeds I want to use up, because I've got a whole box of those. So we're heading into just that mindset. So those are kind of my plans for Pantry Challenge for this year. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, talking a little bit about Pantry Challenge, food storage, kind of all of those things. Like I said, I will have some videos linked down below for you guys if you want to see kind of what these Pantry Challenge videos are going to look like heading into January, and I will catch you guys in another video.